So that's why I'm doing it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number this of the Half Brothers
95.
podcast. I am Jacob.
I'm Glenn Wilson.
Didn't know that. What happened? Glenn Wilson.
I changed my name in Los Angeles.
Okay, it makes sense.
I'm
Makes
a new
sense.
man.
But you're still my brother, right? Like you're not a different person.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I might be from Tatooine.
What is that from?
So, Star Wars,
I was
bro.
gonna
It's
say.
Revenge of the
I
Sith.
was gonna say Dune.
Yeah.
Have you seen
Close,
those movies?
except they wish. I fell asleep. They were too boring. Anyway, welcome to the Half Brothers Pod, folks. We don't know what episode we're on, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter because you love us so much that you just enjoy whenever our faces are on camera and our mouths are on the mic.
What can we say? We're two good-looking dudes.
That's right.
But yeah, so missed last week's episode. Glenn got sunburned again. I know I've been telling him to wear sunscreen. No, we were both traveling. I actually got sunburned this time. I got sunburned real bad.
Did you?
I went to Utah. Glenn, where did you go?
I went to Los Angeles,
I've never been there before. It
California.
looks so cool.
It's beautiful, man. I will say, though, the weather was disappointing. I was in New York City last week. I left on Tuesday night after work, and it was beautiful in New York. The best spring day that I've ever had this year in New York City was walking in Fort Greene Park in my neighborhood in Brooklyn one day in a t-shirt and, very light joggers. And then the next day, I'm flying to LA, and I get to LA, and I'm so chilly that I had to wear a jacket. It was
It was
crazy.
colder in LA?
But it was actually, I'm fixing my camera, sorry. It was actually colder in LA than it was in New York City. Just last week, I think it's a weird April. It was like a weird week that I happened to get there.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, whenever I go to LA, and I've only been there twice, I like some weird stuff follows me. As in the one time I went to LA, the first time we went to Hollywood Boulevard at night and went to some really cool restaurants, bars, went to this kind of cool dance club place with some friends. And as we're walking back to the car at the end of the night, we run from gunshots. Bang, bang, bang.
Sounds like fun.
My buddy Luke said that's literally never ever happened before, and it's just the one time that you came here. So, now I come back and it's cold, and he's like, it's literally never like this, and it rained. He's like, it never rains. We never check the weather, and you're here, and now we have to wear jackets. So I don't know what's going on, but whenever I go there, they just happen to switch things up.
God just doesn't want you to move there. He's like, stay
He
where you're
doesn't, I
at.
guess. But yeah, how was Utah though, man? Were you in Salt Lake City? What part of Utah were you in?
No, it wasn't in Salt Lake City. We went to a couple different places. Honestly, probably drove around the whole state. We put 2,000 miles on our rental car. It was kind of crazy. It's like we had to fly into Vegas. I don't know why, because I'm assuming there's airports in Salt Lake City. Anyway, flew into Vegas, drove up to a town called Moab, where there is two national parks. One is called Arches, one is called Capitol Reef. Capitol Reef, for anybody that hasn't been there, is the Walmart Grand Canyon, is what I like to call it. Really pretty much just the Grand Canyon, but the Walmart version. Arches was pretty cool. It's just a bunch of like archways. It's kind of hard to describe without actually showing you. And then we went to another park, which was called, I don't remember the name, but it was dope. It was a good park. And then we went to the Grand Canyon and we did a hike in the Grand Canyon. I actually hiked down into the canyon a little bit, and that was super fun. It was probably the best or second best hike we did. And then we went to Zion, and Zion was absolutely beautiful. My one cousin kept saying like, he thinks we're in Radiator Springs from Cars. And I was like, dude, this is probably where they were kind of like modeling that from. It was so gorgeous. But yeah, we just did a ton of hiking. Didn't get bit by any rattlesnakes. Didn't encounter any bears. So like, it wasn't that exciting. But we move.
How did you like it out there? Is there the Grand Canyon? I've never been. It looks beautiful. I mean, Utah, I assume the weather was pretty nice, probably. You did get sunburned, you
I
said?
did get sunburned, but that was not from hike. I got a little sunburn hiking on my arms and on the back of my legs somehow. But one day, my cousins didn't want to go hiking, so I stayed back at the house with them, and we just hung out by the pool and got absolutely scorched. Absolutely scorched. Our house was so big. So it's supposed to be my mom and her siblings, so her two sisters and her brother, and then their significant others and their children, including me. It's supposed to be 6 other kids. I mean, I'm an adult, but grandkids of my grandma. So it was supposed to be a lot of people in this house. It was just my mom and her one sister. So me, my mom, and 3 other people. 2 of them are kids. One is 13, one is 5. So it's like not a lot of people in this giant house. And it had a pool, it had an in-ground trampoline, it had a basketball court, 2 fire pits. It was a very nice house. Town we were staying in, population of 1,000 people. Kind of nuts, yeah.
Wow, that is huge.
Yeah, literally. But yeah, it was a great time. I had a lot of fun, other than getting sunburnt and then getting sick the next day, and then still being sick. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I became Mormon while I was out.
I was gonna ask about the Mormons. I was gonna ask about the Mormons. It's so I literally that was the next thing on my tongue. Were there any Mormons evangelizing to you?
No.
Yeah, okay. I mean, in a town of 1,000 people, if you weren't in like the city of Salt Lake, you're probably not gonna encounter too much of that.
So Utah, it is all over Utah. Like almost every
It is all
church
over
we
Utah,
drove
right?
past was LDS.
But if you're in a small town, I don't think they're out evangelizing
No.
as much
Yeah.
because they assume everyone is already pretty much Mormon or already knows about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, probably, I
That's
assume.
what I've heard. Now, what were you tempted at all to move out west? How
Yes.
did you like it?
Like I
I
got
want to hear
home and
about
got a
that.
little bit depressed.
Elaborate on that, because here's what I want to talk. I do want to open up a little bit since we both traveled out west. I do want to talk just quickly about some of the differences and what you like and what you don't like about the West Coast.
What I liked about the West Coast, weather was significantly better. There's mountains everywhere. Like we were in Vegas for a day, mountains in Vegas. We were in Utah. There's mountains everywhere in Utah. There's different food options. That is pretty much the same food options as we have here, but also other ones. So it's like, Chick-fil-A is not East Coast exclusive. I can't even think of anything that's East Coast exclusive. Maybe like Checkers and Rallies, but I don't even eat that.
Swenson's?
I
There's no
mean,
Swenson's in California.
true.
In-N-Out is fine.
In-N-Out's
Okay,
good,
it
but
has
you're right. It's no
nothing on
Swenson's. It's no
Swenson's.
Swenson's. You're absolutely right. But it's still good. And if I just need a burger, like I can't say the last time I went to Swenson's, mainly just because like I can't be bothered to drive to Montrose when I live, 5 minutes from all the good food spots in Wadsworth. So there's that. But yeah, I would absolutely move out there. The thing I don't like is it's so expensive. And in Utah, literally, it seems like the only place that's populated is St. George and Salt Lake City. Because I'm not like, again, we put 2,000 miles on the rental car, and we were driving through nothing for so much of it. We drive through these small towns. You'd be driving through them for literally 1 minute, and you're through the entire town. So, and then it's like we in the 2 towns that we stayed in 3 towns. So in hotels, we stayed in Moab for 2 nights. Then we stayed in Kanab for a night, and then we stayed in Hillsdale for the rest of the time. And in Moab and Kanab, they're 5,000 people towns. So not a ton of stuff going on. And then Hillsdale was the 1,000 person town. So it's like not a lot of people, not a lot to do. None of these towns had a movie theater. I'm a big movie theater guy. I know people don't like going to the movie theaters, but when I got me a nice little significant other, love to take a little date night to the movie theater and go watch a movie.
What about the
Love.
homies, bro? You don't like going to the movies with the homies?
None of my homies like going to the movies. I literally asked my friends to go to the movies, and all of them are like, why don't you just wait for it to come out in 2 weeks on Amazon or something? I'm like, bro, what are you talking about?
That's why I left Ohio, bro. I love everyone in Ohio. I love my people, bro. But some of the homies just love sitting on the couch in
And they
Ohio.
just don't
And
want to
I'm
kiss each
like,
other goodnight. I'm like, what is this stuff about?
I don't get it.
It's so
Like,
weird.
where has friendship gone? You know what
Seriously.
I mean? Like, there's literally nothing I can think of that is more loving than giving the homie a big hug, a dap hug, a nice little kiss on the cheek, maybe a little smooch on the lips, and then maybe a nice little tush, little tush squeeze. So, anyway, we might have to cut all that out, actually.
No.
Just, I mean, I think it's great. I think it's just affection. It's just a cultural difference. People where I'm from, in Ireland. No, dude, but the
Raised.
West Coast is great, bro. And if I can just say this, when I was out there, I kind of have a big announcement. All right, and I figured I would wait and announce it here on the Half Brothers Pod. I was in Los Angeles, California last week, and I had a legitimate offer to move in. My buddy's roommate's moving out. It's a pretty good deal in the house that he lives in. One of my best friends, who I don't think you've met yet, but you're going to meet him eventually. And he offered me to move in to his house. He connected me with someone that could get me a job in tech in the same industry that I'm in very soon. And so I told him I'd think about it, I'd pray about it. I prayed about it, I thought about it, and I'm excited to announce to you for the first time and on the Half Brothers podcast that I'll be staying in New York City
I knew
for
you
the
were gonna do
indefinite
that, dude.
future. and I'm not going anywhere. But it is funny because people, all my friends have been like, they've been like trolling me, being like, "Wow, dude, this dude goes to LA one time and now acts like, he's fallen in love and that the City of Angels is calling his name." Because if you saw my post on Instagram, I was totally being like a basic white girl with like, "I'm just built for this city. It's so beautiful here. Should
Yeah,
I move here? Help me. What should I do?" And you know what's interesting? I did put a poll. Not that I'm anyone, I'm no one, right? But my friends and family, and I think you voted on the
I
poll,
did.
actually. And I looked at the poll, and there were about 50 votes, and about 36 of them said I should move to LA. 16 of those votes, around 16 or 15, were people that live in New York City, friends of mine or other comedians. What have I done that makes you want to push me out of New York in less than 4 years? So I was a little offended. I did love seeing the few friends that I've made in LA. They all voted yes. And then some people from Ohio voted yes because they said, "I don't ever want to visit you in New York, but I'll come visit you if you move to LA."
See, I really like
Everyone
New
has their
York,
preference.
but like that's kind of I wish I
Yeah.
had more than like I wish somebody else I knew, or I mean, I guess Trent still lives in New York, so if you moved to LA, we could just go visit Trent in New York.
Jacob, here's the thing, brother. I'm going to take you to LA. You're going to love it. And you're going to be like, "Wow, Glenn and I are going to move here, build the brand, do everything we want." Because LA has, I think, the nice mix of things that you like, where it's got the quiet, peaceful, slow paced lifestyle, but it's also got some of the hustle and bustle if you drive to certain areas. You'll see it.
And
I
it's
think,
got
I mean,
mountains and the ocean.
it's got mountains, the ocean, the weather. It's amazing. It's just awesome, and it's never gets too
And I
cold.
feel like for what we're trying to do, that would be a good place to be.
It would
Like I
be
feel like there's
amazing.
way more influencers, podcasts, things of, this nature in LA.
There's a great comedy scene, and I was just watching a podcast. I saw something that Nate Bargatze was saying. He was like, "You go to New York. This is for comedians, really, and I guess really maybe any industry though. You go to New York to hustle and grind, and then you go to LA to make it. Whether it's in Hollywood, like film or comedy scene, whatever it is. Now, I think it's a little different depending on the industry that you're in. Real estate, you can make great money in real estate in California. You can start in New York. You can make great money here. So it just depends, but." I will say this. I love New York City. I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. But when the time comes for me to leave New York City, I think LA is the next stop. But we'll go visit it soon. And then the last thing I would do want to say is I do love the West Coast. I love it. It's great. It's amazing. New York has my heart still. But let's talk burgers real fast because I just want to make this clear.
Swenson's
In
is
and out.
king.
Yeah, let's actually, this is going to be important. I want us to clip this one. This is very important because Ohio people will back us up, and maybe LeBron will see this and back us up
Hear
because
that,
he
Randy?
is
Clip
someone that
this
has
one.
lived. Yeah,
Yeah. That's our
Morton,
editor, dude, bro.
it's our editor. Yeah, that's right. Randy. Yeah, Randy, you got this? So, I was in California. I had In-N-Out Burger for the second time. It's really, really good. I love In-N-Out Burger. It's great. It's a great burger. It's just great shakes, everything. It's awesome for what it is. There was a burger called For the Win, a burger place called For the Win in LA. Better smash burger than In-N-Out Burger, for sure, in my opinion. Now, there's a place in New York City called Gotham Burger. I would say that For the Win is better than Gotham Burger. In and Out is better than Gotham Burger. But there's a burger in New York, Jacob, I think we had it, 7th Street
I was
Burger.
gonna say that was a good burger.
Before we get to the number one burger that you and I agree on, I want to hear your thoughts on 7th Street Burger.
Genuinely, like not even just trying to blow smoke because like you live in New York or anything like that. It's my second favorite burger.
Second favorite burger of all time. And I have to agree with you completely. So I would say this.
Here's a
I'm going to
quick
go
question
top.
since we're still talking about it before
Yeah,
we put the
please.
ranking out there. You ever had Culver's?
Oh, I do love Culver's.
Culver's is a good one. Culver's is a good
I
one.
do love Culver's.
Culver's up there on my list too. Honestly, I think Culver's is number three for me.
Five Guys and Culver's are definitely up there for me. Now, Five Guys Burger is pretty solid for what it is for a quick. And you know what? I'm also going to give Shake Shack its fair share.
Never had Shake Shack,
But
and I've only had Five Guys one time. I think it's when we were coming back from OSYC the first time I ever went. It was at a church. It was with the
okay.
church. It was with the church with youth group, and it was when you were still going to youth group. We went to Five Guys for some reason, and that's the only time I've ever had it.
Well, you know what? This summer, what we're going to have to do whenever we break for like a few weeks or a month or whatever for summer, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we travel and we have these burgers and we vlog it and we rank it. And we might need to bring my buddy Luke Stafford along because he is a burger maniac, and he's in great shape. But that man will eat like a dog when it comes to burgers. So you know what? Why don't you give your quick ranking from what you know, and then I'll get my ranking with the West Coast and East Coast stuff, and then we'll move on to our topic today.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Culver's is number 3. 2 is gonna be 7th Street, and number 1 is Swenson's.
Now, what is your number one at Swenson's? What do you get at
I
Swenson's?
just go double cheese, ketchup, mustard, pickle. I think I know what you get. It's what most people get. I'm not a big fan of
Yeah.
that
Okay, that's okay. We'll come to that. But you just said Swenson's best burger, typical classic double cheese,
one. Classic double cheese. And then
amazing.
gotta go with the potato teasers.
Gosh, oh, I'm gonna be in Akron this weekend, bro. We're hitting it up. I can't
We'll
wait.
go for sure.
I can't wait. Here's where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go New York City. I'm gonna go LA. I'm gonna go East Coast, West Coast, and Midwest. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna go number five is a nice Shake Shack double cheeseburger. Okay, Shake Shack or the bacon cheeseburger that they have. Shake Shack's number five. Number four, I'm gonna hit you with that In and Out burger. That In and Out burger, it's really solid. It's always consistent. It's classic. Number three, I'm gonna hit you with that LA for the win smash burger. So good. Shout out to Luke Stafford for introducing me to that. It's incredible. The meat is so juicy. It's just like really high quality meat. Like you don't even feel gross after eating it. I don't even know how to explain it. Number two, 7th Street burger. You do feel gross after eating it, but that's okay because it's the most delicious thing ever.
It's
7th Street
incredible.
burger in New York City, the perfect amount of grease, the juiciest burger in New York. It's better than all the other smash burgers in New York. And then number one is the Galley Boy at Swenson's in Akron, Ohio. Ask my boy LeBron James. Ask my boy Jameis Winston. You know what? Ask my boy Jesus Christ because I think he might even go out on a limb and say
It's
that
the
he
best burger
purposely
of all
made that the
time.
best one of all time.
Yeah.
So LA, New York, I love you both. In and Out, love it. 7th Street Burger, love it. But Swenson's in Akron, Ohio is taking home the gold for the best burger in America,
Now I
probably in the
wonder I
world.
wonder if it is actually good or if we're just biased because we grew up on it.
It's actually a national award-winning burger. It's one. It was on the Food Network. It's a famous burger. I mean, it's world famous. You know, they have the signs there because it's literally world famous, and it's so famous that Swenson's is no longer just an Ohio thing.
Yeah.
It's in other Midwest states now. It's growing.
It's in
Now,
Florida.
I hate that. I hate it's in Florida. I didn't even know that. See, I hate that because I don't want us to lose our hometown quality of it. But I love that it's growing and that something that's going nationwide was built in Akron. And when LeBron James retires, he needs to buy it and make the burgers big again. Make
And bring
Swenson's
back the
burgers
home
big again.
style ranch, bro. Stop ordering these ranch packets, man. I miss the days when I ordered ranch and it was from one of those little freaking things and you poured it in a little plastic cup and put a lid on it. Stop giving me this prepackaged thing with your logo on it that's got this piece of foil tin wrap on it that doesn't taste like the ranch used to taste. That's the only complaint I'll make about it. The ranch used to be so much better. It's so bad now.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, we've talked a lot about the East Coast, the West Coast, traveling,
Food.
burgers, food. It's been great. You know, Jacob's not feeling great today. I'm not feeling great today. I think we're both probably a little sick from travel, lack of sleep. The time changes has been killing me still. I've slept 6 hours in 48 hours. I'm not feeling great, but we're pushing through for the fans, the millions listening, the two people that listen consistently, the coworkers that listen to this just so that they can make fun of me behind my back. I don't even care, but I know you're here. To the ex-girlfriends that want to see I'm failing, I'm not because I'm with my little brother on a virtual podcast talking about burgers. What has my life come to, bro? All right, we're having fun. Jacob, what's the topic today? We're gonna talk about the second half of the pod.
Today's topic is going to be the fruit of the spirit. So we're going to get a little Christian on you. I know you guys hate these episodes, but I love them. Makes me feel like I'm not wasting my life.
Do people hate these episodes? Has someone told you that? All right.
Yeah, we just don't do them as often as I would like to. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the fruits of the spirit. For those of you who don't necessarily know what the fruits of the spirit is, and I would say I'm newer to a lot of this Christian stuff. was kind of in and out of church growing up. Went to vacation Bible school every summer when I was over at Glenn's house, but didn't go to church every Sunday. If I did go to church, again, it was usually because I was at Glenn's house.
Shout out to Awana. Remember
Yeah,
the Awana program? Yeah.
yeah,
Cubbies, Sparkies,
yeah. I was so excited I made it
TNT.
into Sparky's and then never went to Awana again.
That's so funny.
But yeah, so kind of grew up in and out of the church, so I'm not, super educated and practiced when it comes to a lot of this stuff. But over the last few years, I've just been taking my faith more and more seriously. Those of you who've been listening or know me at all know what I'm talking about. So fruit of the spirit, at least to me, when I say that and when I think about that, at least what I was trying to convey when I said I wanted this to be the topic today was that a lot of, I think, and especially me, I'm mainly speaking for myself and how I used to be.
You know what? Why don't I read the verse real quick that mentions all of them, and then
Okay.
I'll let you say what you're going to say. Does that work? Is that a
Yeah,
good way
go
to
ahead, go
start?
ahead.
Just for the people that aren't familiar with the fruits of the spirit. So this comes from Galatians 5:22, and so I'm just going to read it real quick. And this is Paul speaking here. And he says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self control." You know what? Let me see if I can find this full verse actually, because I would like to just kind of give a little more context. But those are the ones: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self control. As I'm looking for the full verse, Jacob, go ahead and dive into what you were going to say.
Yeah. So like for me, when I think of fruit of the spirit, like a big thing that comes to mind when I think of it is like is honestly James 2:26. Faith without works is dead. So like that's something that I think about a lot when I think of like fruit of the spirit. There's a lot of people that call themselves Christians and then don't live even, slightly a Christian lifestyle. And I'm not trying to call anybody out or act, holier than thou, but I say that because that's how I used to live my life. I called myself a Christian, said I believed in Jesus, claimed him to be my Lord and Savior, and then lived anything but, a Christian lifestyle. I lived in any other way than for someone to believe like, hey, this guy's a Christian. Like if I didn't tell you with my mouth that I was a Christian and that I believed in Jesus, there was no reason for you to think that that was the case for me. I still, curse quite often, not as much as I used to, but, still do a lot, lost, the V card when I was pretty young, a lot younger than I should have been, was doing, smoking weed every day, drinking, I've never really had a problem with alcohol, but, drinking more than I should on the times when I would drink. So there was really no reason for anybody to believe. And oh yeah, I almost get in fights at soccer all the time. Like, one person says like, "Oh man, that was a terrible shot." I'd be like, "Bro, you trying to fight?" When he was just telling me it was a terrible shot. But anyway, yeah. So I was living my life and being no sort of representation to the words that were coming out of my mouth, especially when it came to Christ. So at least for me, when I think of fruit of the spirit, it's sort of like the change that has occurred in my life. And since really trying to dive into my faith, going to church every week, and really trying to take my faith more seriously. Me and my buddy Brad were talking about it one time, and he was kind of just like telling me, he was like, it's a changing of your heart. Like it's not, you may want to do different things, you may want to be better, but like God has to change your heart. And only God can change your heart. Like I can preach to anybody I want to preach to, but God has to do the work in that person's heart in order for them to actually change. And without, that changing of your heart, without that changing of your soul, like you're not actually going to change. So it's like feeling, experiencing this change in my own life and seeing it make me actually be different, actually, live a different lifestyle. That's, what mainly comes to my mind when I think of like fruits of the spirit, is because like now there is fruits of my faith. You can see through different things that I do, whether it's the sobriety, whether it's the celibacy, whether it's the not cursing as much, or, being kinder to people, being more loving and forgiving to people. It is more clear without me having to just, so much outright and say it, that it is what I believe. So that's the thing that I think of when I think of fruit of the spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good definitely a good chunk of it, a really good way to think about it and look at it. And just to provide a little more context to the passage here in Galatians where Paul lists these fruits of the spirit. First off, the author is the Apostle Paul, and he wrote this letter to the Galatians, and I'm looking up the date, and it looks like it was around AD, 48 to 55 AD, right? So the audience here is in the region of Galatia, which is now known as Turkey. So it's modern day Turkey. He's saying this, his audience is Christians in that region who are being pressured by some of the Jewish Christians to follow the Old Testament laws, like circumcision, in addition to believing in Christ. So if you read Galatians, he's talking about how it's, Christ alone. It's Christ plus nothing. It's Christ alone. And so a lot of people at this time, just like today, are trying to say it's Christ plus this. You have to do this and do this. But what Paul is emphasizing here is that he's actually contrasting life in the flesh, our selfish desires, our sinful nature. He's contrasting that with life in the spirit. So in other words, like godly character. And so just before the fruit list that he gives here in Galatians, he actually lists the works of the flesh beforehand. Things like hatred, jealousy, sexual immorality, anger, all the things you just kind of talked about in your own life, Jacob. He actually lists those in this passage before he talks about the fruits of the Spirit. And then in verse 22 and 23, he lists the fruit of the Spirit, which is then the visible spiritual results of living a life led by the Holy Spirit. So it's not that we have to do these things. It's that because we are living in the Spirit with God, this is actually the spiritual results of living a life led by the Holy Spirit. And so basically his point in Galatians when he brings us up is that we are free from the law through Christ, but the freedom is not a license to sin, right? Like faith without works is dead, right? Like you had mentioned. And so it's not a license to sin. It's an invitation to walk by the Spirit and to let him transform our character, to let his Spirit come into our lives, come into our hearts, and transform our character so that we're not living in the ways of the flesh, even though we're tempted, even though we'll fall short, right? And so the fruit isn't produced by trying harder, but by abiding in the Spirit. Because you can try as hard as you want, and you're going to fail, and you're going to fall into, sort of the, like the works of the flesh. So it's the fruit of the Spirit, not the work of the flesh, that is the spiritual result of the Holy Spirit living within you and being a Christian. So I think what you just said, everything you said is spot on, and it really relates to exactly what Paul was getting at. And it's interesting how, I said what year did I say? 48 to 55 AD, around that time when this was written. Well, you're relating to this passage. I'm relating to this passage in 2000. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
That a writing at this point in time, and a lot of people want to say the Bible's irrelevant, it's outdated, blah, blah, blah. And sure, there's a lot of things contextually speaking that are outdated that wouldn't make sense to us today, and their proper context makes sense, and you can still take lessons and truth from, right? But like we don't have ox, I don't own an ox and things like that, right?
Hey,
when
pass me
when the
the
Ten
ox, bro.
Commandments, yeah, that's true. There's that ox. But when the Ten Commandments talks about don't covet thy neighbor's ox or whatever, it's just talking about, don't covet, right? What other people have. Like that still relates to us. I just am not really jealous of someone else's ox or oxen. So I think it's really interesting and powerful that something that's being written, 50 years after the birth of Christ is still relatable to humans 2,000 years later. And I think that whether you're a Christian or not, this is relatable because think of how things like hatred and anger and jealousy come into your life and cause pain for yourself, for others. We go to counseling, and I'm a big advocate for counseling, for psychology, when the practice is healthy, and when it is talking about how, things like the fruits of the Spirit are actually very beneficial. Non-Christian counselors will actually tell you that these things are very healthy to practice. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control is the number one thing people go to for counseling. Self-control, because we don't have self-control. But if you have patience, if you have kindness, if you have gentleness, faithfulness, you will have self-control. And so this is very relatable to every human that exists ever, and it always will be relatable because the Bible is inspired by the God that made every single human being, right? And so that's why whether you're a Christian or not, you're listening to this, you might think, Glenn, you're wrong. I don't believe in that God stuff, whatever, blah, blah. Look, I'm not telling you to believe this or that you have to believe this or any of this stuff. I believe it to be true. And even if you don't believe it to be true, I think if you look hard enough, you can't deny the relevance this has in your life. And if it's relevant in your life, the least you can do is recognize the um, the significance of this text of this book, and then who knows, give it a little more credibility, look into it a little bit more. Who knows where you'll end up? But I think you're right, Jacob. If someone's going to come to Christ and become a Christian, it can't just be you know, an academic or scholarly search. Your heart has to be transformed and changed by God. And so that's our prayer for everyone listening to this. And even if you're not there or you don't think you'll ever be there, like we still love you and pray for you and care for you and want you to keep listening. And we're happy to talk about this stuff, whether we're educated or not, because our lives have been transformed and changed by God. So,
Yeah.
Jacob, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah.
We're getting very Christian. How about that? We don't do it enough. Well, we're going
Very.
to go hard right now. Okay.
I mean, it's kind of seems it's just on my mind after what you said. And maybe it's on my mind just because spending some time with family that isn't all believers. So been seeing a lot of stuff that kind of made me think, oh, maybe I should not try to be preachy with people. That like, hey, if someone can be argued into the kingdom, they can be argued out of the kingdom. So I don't always want to try to convince people that I'm right or that I know what I'm talking about, but there's just so many things that make it seem so obviously true to me. So it's like this, for example, like therapists can even tell, like you're talking about how therapists can even tell you, like if you like follow the fruits of the spirit, if you try to have these things in your life more abundantly, like they are going to be better for you in your life. The thing people have the most trouble with is self-control, even though that's one of the fruits of the spirit. So it's like, to me, it's not coincidental that like a happier life, a more peaceful life, a more content life is also goes hand in hand with a lot of these things. But something I've been seeing a lot of people mention recently, and it could just be because I am Christian and I watch a lot of Christian content, uh, was that you have to believe in a miracle. If for life to exist, there has to have been a miracle. So you either have to believe in the virgin birth of the universe or the virgin birth of Christ. Like you pick your miracle, but one of them happened. And to me, it is far more outlandish. And I apologize to anybody that I may be offending saying that, but it is far more outlandish to think that the universe just poof started one day. And the main thing that does this for me, so if anybody out there is a mathematician and you can solve this problem for me, with a friend one time, they were trying to, tell me that, God doesn't make sense. If God was real, why is there, suffering, that whole line. And then I asked, wrote on a piece of paper, I wrote 2 zeros. I said, these are the only 2 numbers you get. You get 2 zeros and you got to get me a 1. You can use plus, minus, multiplication, division, square root, whatever it is, whatever you need to use. But I need, with these 2 zeros, you can't add any other numbers. You only have these 2 zeros. You can use whatever type of symbol you want. But with these 2 zeros, I need you to get me a 1. And I have asked that question to a couple people actually, and nobody has been able to answer it. I'm not friends with any mathematicians, so I don't know if it's actually possible, but that is the point that I'm making. How does nothing and nothing create everything that there is to be created in the universe? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It doesn't compute in my brain. And it is supposed to make sense with a lot of like science and like the discovery of the world and how the universe started and this, that, and the other. You're supposed to be able to figure it out. You're supposed to have the answer to it. When the Bible tells you pretty clearly, like, you're not going to understand some of this stuff. Like, you're not on the same wavelength as the creator of the universe. Like, there's things that are beyond your action. Like, it tells you, like, hey, like, yeah, sure, this might not make sense. It's not supposed to make sense, which makes sense. Like, oh, yeah, it doesn't make sense. You're telling me it's not going to make sense. Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So, I don't know. There's just a lot of different things about Christianity. And like I've looked into other religions. Like I've never gone to a mosque or to a Jewish temple or anything. But what I know about Jesus makes me believe in him, and what I know about the Islam religion makes me not think that it's true even slightly. And like, there's a lot of people who aren't educated on Islam, and I think that anybody watching this should, do your research into to every religion. I think that all people should believe in God. Like God is real. God, there is a creator to the universe. Like which is one of the reasons why like I do the different type of fitness stuff that I do, like why I don't just do, the typical bro lifts in the gym anymore, and I do all this other different stuff as well, is because if you think about like a machine, so like if we were gonna build a house or something like that, you're gonna start by laying the foundation. Well, how do you get down to a foundation? You usually got to dig so you can pour the cement. Well, what do you dig with? Is it nowadays it's not a shovel, it's usually like an excavator or something. Well, that excavator is designed to work in a certain way. It can't, do anything you possibly want it to do. There's a certain design that excavator has, and that's what it's going to do. Well, there's a certain design the human body has, and that's what it's going to do, or that's what it's meant to do. That's how it's meant to work. So when I think about like that, like, there's designs to all things. Cars are designed a certain way. They're designed to go forward and back and, turn left and right and these different things. They're not designed to fly. You can't make your car fly. Like, sure, if you go really fast up a hill, you can get off the ground for a couple seconds, but like, it's not gonna fly you from New York to LA. Like, it'll keep you on the ground. You can stay on the ground and get there, but you're not, getting there in a couple hours like you did. So like, to everything that we have in the world, there is a designer, and there is a way that thing is meant to be used by the designer. And I think that, that's something that, especially when I've could become, stronger in my faith, has really kind of helped me with, getting a lot of my stuff with my body right. Is, there was a designer to our body. He designed our bodies a certain way. And, we're meant to use our bodies in those ways. And especially like when I think about like Jesus and the things that he would have done, like how he would have used his body, like he was walking all over the place, dude. Like you only hear one time, at least for what I can remember reading, you only hear of one time where he rode the mule into the town. The rest of the time he's walking on his feet. And they weren't using, they weren't wearing Ultra Boost, they weren't wearing Air Max. They didn't have, this super plush cushion. You also don't hear any stories about any of them spraining an ankle or having back problems or, anything like that. They were probably wearing some very flat sandals. And even if they were wearing sandals, like I'm sure that they probably did go barefoot some
Oh,
of the
I
time.
guarantee you, brother, they had some back problems. They had back problems for
I
sure.
mean, maybe
They
with
had a lot of
with
that.
the
They just
the
weren't
stuff they
crying
were,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, they weren't crying about it, you little babies. But yeah, and like like the way that they would have been sitting, like there wasn't, chairs. Chairs weren't super common and everything back then. Like they're probably sitting on the floor a lot. They're probably doing a lot of the stuff that that I do now. So it's like
Yeah.
I think about the
So I think,
designer and how he designed us, and I think that I think if more people thought about that, they'd be a little healthier. I know I went off on a lot of different areas there, but
yeah, you definitely did. And that's okay because we're just talking. We're just having a conversation, and it's a fun one, and it's a deep one. Just a few things I'll say, and then I'll get us kind of back on track to the fruits specifically. A few things I would say is this. I think that, and this is really just me talking to you, and then anyone who might have the same thoughts that you and I have. I think that, because I have a group of friends that are Christians that get together every Tuesday and we pray together, we have dinner together, we hang out, we talk about our faith and life and how we're doing. Just a family, really just like a community of people. And last night we were talking about what it looks like to be bolder in our faith and um, be used by God to witness to others and spread His love to them, because we know that the love of God can bring you contentment and joy. It doesn't mean you're going to be happier or you're always going to be feeling great. And it actually means you're going to have a life of pain and suffering and sacrifice, but you can sacrifice things and suffer well, knowing that there's hope, right? And so what does that look like? Well, you used the word preachy, and I think I used to be very preachy growing up. In other words, I was very closed-minded, and I thought one way about things, and I would say things very matter of fact. And then over time, as I experienced more challenges in my own life and my own faith, as I experienced more diversity from a religious perspective, I was able to navigate conversations in I think more meaningful and powerful ways by not being as quote unquote preachy, but I'm not hiding anything. I think there's a difference between being forceful, right? And being, quote unquote preachy, the negative connotation that we have to preachy. But then there's also a positive connotation of being bold and fearless in sharing and preaching the gospel in the sense of just speaking truth to people. And so now I'm in a place like New York, right? And I've made this clear to you. I've made this clear to on this podcast to everyone. Like, I'm not a Christian influencer. I don't plan on being a Christian influencer. I never ever wanted to be a Christian content creator or anything like that, and I still don't have any plans on doing that or being that. I am me, and I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. I'm going to say what I believe to be true, and I'm going to do it in a way that's patient, loving, kind, gentle, practicing these fruits of the Spirit in my approach and sharing what I believe to be true. So, as a comedian in New York City, you know, everyone knows, pretty much everyone that comes to my shows knows I'm a Christian. Why? Because I have jokes about it in my set. I talk about it, when it comes up authentically or naturally. I don't force it and I read the room well, but there are times where I believe God is using me to speak to people and share his love and his truth. But I think there's also times where the Spirit is saying, trust me, plant the seed, be gentle, don't do too much, because I don't need to always be telling people, hey, you need to repent right now. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very much about building. I see people street preaching in New York City, and I think, if you're doing it out of love and care for people's souls, I think that's great. Well, the other day we actually went on the street and for a few hours, me and a couple friends, and we just went around and talked to strangers and said, "Hey, we're going around. We're just praying for people in the neighborhood. Is there anything we can pray for you for?" And a lot of them said, "No, no, thank you," or "I don't do that." And we're like, "All right, no worries. We're just going to walk away." You know. But the fact that we said, "Hey, we're just praying for the community. Is there anything we can pray for you?" There was one man that said, "What? What are you doing?" We were like, "We're just going around praying for people." He was like, "Do you want something?" We're like, "No, we're literally just going around. We go to different churches. We're just going around praying for our community. We know a lot of people are going through a lot. We just want people to know that God sees them and God loves them." And this man wept. And he told us about how his mother has dementia and is very ill. And you don't really come back from the Alzheimer's and dementia that she has, how severe it is, to a point where he's taking care of her. And she struck him because she got scared, didn't know who he was. And he said, and we prayed for him about 15 minutes, had a talk with him. Old school Brooklyn, New Yorker, really nice guy in his 60s. He wept and cried and said, I really needed this. And I don't really, go to church often, but I used to be a part of a church in the community. I want to go back. And, I feel like you guys were sent from heaven. And we were like, "Brother, we believe that God did send us here. And, when we saw you, we believe that was the Spirit leading us." Not in like a weird way. We planned on going out and praying for people, but we said we're going to look around and just like, talk to people in this park. You have to do it in a way where it's not coming off forceful or weird, because if you just walk up on people in New York, they might think they're getting sold something or attacked. But we just trusted in God. We were bold in that. And I was anxious, but we did it and we had a very loving conversation. I think it's much more about having one-on-one conversations, building relationships, building trust, instead of just saying, "This is the way it is, believe it or don't." And that's where my approach has changed. Now, you do sometimes need urgency in preaching the message, but I think the fruits of the Spirit come in, and if we can spread the truth in love, if we can have these things in mind, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, we know that we're not going to argue anyone into the kingdom. We're not going to convince or sway anyone into being a Christian. God will use us in a way, but only he can regenerate their heart. And we're never going to do something so wrong that we ruin what God can do for that person. Because at the end of the day, it's up to God and not us, but we're going to be used by him, and we trust in him when we do that. So anyway, I just wanted to address a few of the things you said and connect it back to where you were starting, because I think what you're saying is very important, and I think it does relate. And so kind of as we're wrapping up, I guess, like, Jacob, I want to ask you a few questions that I had here. What do you think? And I kind of just answered this question, but I want to ask you now. This is kind of a question for you and for other people listening to think about. And then I think we can close. What do you think? What does this fruit look like in your life today? Like, what are some ways you can, exercise the fruits of the Spirit in your life tomorrow, this coming week? What are some things that come to mind for you?
Honestly, first thing that comes to mind is self-control. It's still my biggest struggle is women. Like I just, see a pretty girl, she gives me the time of day, and I want to be like, hey, I want to ask her out, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then like, there'll be other times when I think about it. And it's even when I'm thinking about, hey, maybe I should try to date that girl, maybe I should see if, something could potentially work with that. I'm like, nah, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm in a place where I don't think that I'm ready for a marriage, and I'm also in a place where I'm done with the whole 21st century dating and having a girlfriend if I don't think that that girlfriend is going to be my wife one day. So I would say that's my biggest struggle currently, and it's always been my biggest struggle, and probably always will be my biggest struggle up until the day that I do find a wife. And hopefully it's not a struggle anymore. Hopefully, God has trained me up well enough to where I can just have eyes for her. But yeah, my biggest struggle is still women, still, maintaining self-control and not hitting my Instagram, little magnifying glass and looking at the little thought mamas on there, and yeah, so I would say that's probably the
We might do some voiceovers on some of the things for this one, but all good.
but yeah, I would say that's my biggest area. I feel like I'm being more patient about things, more loving, and don't try to like you said, be as preachy about things. Unless we're on here, and then I gotta tell people how it is.
Oh, we can do it on here. We can do it on here. This is our camera. This is our
Yeah, you
podcast.
clicked the watch button, man. Um,
Or woman.
or yeah, or woman, that one girl that's watching. But yeah, so I
That
would say,
thought mama that's watching. Thought mama is crazy.
I mean, hey, call it like I see it, dude.
God loves thought mamas. He loves
He
everyone.
loves everybody.
Anyway, back to
He
what
doesn't
you were
want you
saying.
being a thought mama, but he still loves you. But yeah, that's still my biggest area of.
You ever heard the story about the thought mama at the well?
I have heard the story of the thought mama as well.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Man,
What about you? What are some ways that you?
I think, man, some fruits I can exercise. I think, I mean, yeah, all of them I could definitely be doing better in, but I definitely think I've been experiencing a lot of joy in life. I think I've been experiencing a lot of love, and I have been kind, and I think I can be more gentle and patient. I think work is stressing me out. Sales is stressing me out. Life is, one. I do love New York City. One thing that was nice about being in LA was the slowed down pace a little bit. Felt like I had a little more room to breathe, a little more room to think. New York, it's a lot of pressure being here, and I feel like I've been so anxious and just kind of like, I guess crippled by the anxiety of, sales quotas and, comedy goals and all this stuff that I'm not being patient on the Lord, and I'm maybe not being as faithful. And maybe I'm not being patient with friends, family, coworkers. Maybe I'm not being as gentle with them. But and then probably self-control too, because all that leads to me not doing the things I need to be doing. So anyway, to get a little vulnerable on here, I think all those for sure. And I guess to kind of close, I would just like encourage anyone here to reflect on these and really like think about, some ways that you can exercise these, grow in these, pray over it. If you're not a believer and you want to learn more about this, I mean, message us or go to a local church, because we're not pastors. We're just guys. We're just two half brothers living life, trying to get through it, trying to learn. We're not experts at all, but we love the Lord. We believe He's changed our life, and we believe He can change your life. So we'll help you, point you in the right direction if we can. And if you think this is all a bunch of BS, well, I appreciate you listening this far. But yeah, we'd love for you guys to message us like which fruits stand out to you right now, what you're going through, how we can help, how we can pray for you. Maybe that's something we can put more on the Instagram, is just like how we can be praying for people. Maybe we can post more on the Instagram, more just to engage and see how people are doing and see how we can best serve people in some spiritual ways and some life motivating ways, things like that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. So just final recap, I guess, is the fruits of the Spirit. Let me find this quote that I had from Keller. Where did he say it? I can't find
And
the
if you
quote,
do
but it
need
was basically,
like a church or something, or want to get back into it, I've been going to this young adult group. If you're in my area and you need something to do, been going to this young adult group called Collective. I'd love for you to join me. Me and a couple of my friends go. It's been awesome, man. It's a really good group. I've met a lot of people there, made a lot of new friends. And then me and a couple buddies, it's a little smaller, a little more intimate. We also do a Bible study on Saturdays. So if you know me and it's something you'd be interested in doing, just learn a little bit more. Maybe you're not a Christian, and we'd love to have you join us for that as well. So feel free to shoot me a DM if you know me and you've made it this far. Just talk to me. Talk to me at work,
or if
whoever
you
you
don't
are.
know us, DM the page, comment on the page, whatever it is, whether it's New York, Indiana, Ohio, California. I mean, we got connections
Glenn's
everywhere.
got
And
connections
if not,
everywhere. I'm really just Ohio.
well, I say we
I
because
appreciate you. I appreciate you.
we're one brand.
Heck yeah.
Even if we don't have connections, we'll help you find good resources and make sure you're getting to a Bible believing, faithful church. But here's all I was going to say is, these spiritual gifts are the spiritual results of living a life led by the Holy Spirit. We're free from the law through Christ, but freedom is not a license to sin. It's an invitation to walk by the Spirit and let Him transform your character. So these fruits are not produced by trying harder, but by abiding in the Spirit. That's what Tim Keller said. With that, that's a wrap on today's episode. I have been Glenn Shin, and this is Jacob.
Jacob.
Sign us off. Make up a name. You got to make up a fake name. I'm
Uh,
Greg Wilson.
I'm Jabari Johnson.
And this is
the Half Brothers Podcast. Thanks for
the
watching.
IRS coming to get you. Alrighty, folks. Have a good one. God bless.
Bye-bye.